The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
So hello and welcome to this month's Scriptcase webinar. Now I do hope you can all hear me okay and that there's no problems with the sound because I'm having problems with my microphone today, so I'm having to use the one from my webcam, I'm afraid. So I hope I sound okay for everyone and that you can all hear me without any problems. Okay, so this month we have a major update, but before I get there, I want to first of all apologize to those that are or were looking forward to this month's webinar, which I had spoken about within last month's. So just be aware that will still be upcoming. So just do keep an eye out for that within the upcoming webinars. And there we will then also learn more about styling your applications within Scriptcase, as well as, well, creating a special project, which will be upcoming later. Okay, so to start off with today, we have a major update. Okay, so somebody says their sound is good, and then somebody says there is no sound. Okay, if you don't have no sound, then I would suggest you check your sound, because if somebody else is saying the sound is good, then I'm guessing that it is okay. Yeah, that's somebody else letting me know also. Okay, so excellent. Okay, so as I was saying, we have a major update today, and as you may be seeing here, that is on PHP 8.1. Now, if you have been using Scriptcase for some time now, then you will also know what that would imply, a major update. And I will come to that as I go along within this video or this webinar. Okay, so as I was saying, the release of 8.1, now that is for Scriptcase itself. That is very important. So with that, we will have some changes. We have a slight change within the security module for older versions of Scriptcase. Well, older versions of platforms developed in Scriptcase, should I say, so correct myself there. And we also have some depreciated functions. Now, I should note that Scriptcase was based on 7.4 or 7.6, correct me if I'm wrong, but okay, so from that version, of course, to 8.1, there have been quite a few changes, and we're going to go into all of those. So let's have a look first of all. Now, this page is not available online yet, so if you're looking for it, it is not yet available. It will be soon. It is currently actually the Brazilian version, and I've just gone ahead and used the Google Translate. Okay, so when it's available, you will have the same information available that I am showing you now, as well as the links here. So I have here 3 links, so we can see what has changed in PHP. So the changes in the security module, as well as the depreciated functions. Okay, so what is new? So what's new in PHP 8.1? Now, as I mentioned, it is a change from 7.4 to 8.1, and that's why some of these, because like myself, I was asking the null operator, for instance, that was also from 7.6, I believe, but of course, then that kind of confused me. So not to confuse yourselves either, this is for Scriptcase itself. So when you install Scriptcase, it will come automatically with PHP 8 and 8.1 from now on, okay? So that is then the default environment. So as I was saying, a major update, you will need to reinstall Scriptcase or install a new copy of Scriptcase, and that will also require some migration, which we will come to. So for PHP, if you are a coder and you use Scriptcase to code your own applications, then this will be very important to you, because you may well be using some of these old functions and features of the older versions of PHP, which are no longer valid, i.e. depreciated, and will cause errors in your code. So I will have a quick look at some of those, and we will also show you the errors, what it will look like, and typically what we need to change. So we have some read-only properties. Okay, so you have here the difference, how it worked previously. So this is typically how you would then code that. And then in PHP 8.1, of course, there is quite a bit of a difference. We can really shorten our code, and there are quite a lot of nice changes. Okay, so we also have then the null value. So this is no longer valid. You can no longer use null within your code. So you would then be better off just using a blank space, which we'll also come to. We have type properties, union types, string contains function, string starts with, and strings ends with function. So some of these we're going to go into as we continue on, and we're going to see again also the errors that will be presented, and of course the solution or the alternative to what it is now today. And you will also have that here available for you once this page is live. And okay, so then the next part of it was then the change within the security module. Now I will have a quick look at this. So I'm going to skip this one for now, okay? And we'll come back to this in a moment, because for that I will jump into Scriptcase. There I have already created a basic platform with nothing at all really, just the security module. And for older versions, you will then be able to see the slight change that you will need to make. And of course, we will also have a look at that within Scriptcase. Okay, so our depreciated functions. So our depreciated functions for PHP. Now we have here the nested operators with explicit parentheses. We also have accessing arrays and string values using curly braces, so that's no longer curly braces. And we have variables containing null, each function. So it's pretty much, if you pay attention to what's new in PHP 8.1, you will then also know what has been depreciated also. And of course, this is a bit more in depth on, what is actually required. And again, we have here the changes that are then required for you to make within your own code when you develop your applications within Scriptcase. Of course, if you use the typical generation and you don't actually create your own methods or your own libraries or anything like that, then you shouldn't have to worry about this. But if you do have a developer that then manages that for you, then you will want to get in touch with them and have them update your code so that it is then up to the latest standard. Now, you may be wondering, why the update to 8.1? Well, as with any update, of course, the main topic for everything is always performance and security. And of course, that is the reason. Now, if we look at some of these, for instance, like I was looking at myself, for instance, here, the each function, and this is then changing. We don't use the each function no more. So there we use the for each. So there we would basically list each line after each other of content, of data that is being then pulled from our database. So if I come here into Scriptcase, for instance, and I have here a blank application. Now this is running the latest version. So if I run here, for instance, a blank application with echo hello world, we'll see that here. And this version then also comes with then the 8.1 that will soon be released, okay? And once it's released, then you will also start to see some of these errors. So as I was saying, one of the main pointers that we have is, first of all, the array. So when we create an array, I'm just going to copy and paste this because, of course, much faster like that. Now, if we create an array, we would typically create one like so. So we have our variable, we assign an array to it, and then we have our data presented within that array. Now, within PHP 7, you could then basically indicate, so if I then go, say ind1, so this is our indicator, and that would then equal here our array, and then we would then give that curly brackets, and then close that. And of course, we would indicate which of those data's keys that we would want to then display. So with that, that would then typically work. But now with PHP 8.1, this will actually start presenting an error. So there we already have. There is an error here, so that's not going to work. So if I finish this code off, of course I want to echo this. That is, of course, my main mistake there. And typically I could echo that with either the straight brackets or even the curly brackets. So we change that to the curly brackets. That will then just present, again, another error. And we have that also here. And if it would then display the page, so if I change here to hard brackets, that's wrong key, and try and echo that again, we can open that, and again, we have an error, okay? So, of course, I was making mistakes here in the page first at the same time, but we have some options there, whether we create this with hard brackets or curly brackets, and then the output will also always present us an error saying it's no longer presented, it's no longer supported, sorry, okay? So that is important, and we have that also then. So if I change that, for instance, now to hard brackets again, so array test one, and we can actually remove this here, the equals, because that's no longer needed, and we can run that again, and now we should have, open manually, our output, okay? So the curly brackets and the hard brackets, that's a very important factor. That is something you will want to change within your code. So when you create your arrays, which we also do within our, sorry, wrong page, within our security, okay? So here you see, for instance, I have here the app login page, and within the app login page, we use the curly brackets here, right here, for the randomization of the remember me cookie that is presented, and that is then also within the PHP methods remember me validate, okay? So for older versions of Scriptcase, pre 8.0, I believe, okay, but you do want to check that if you generate or migrate your entire platform over to the latest version of Scriptcase, now with PHP 8.1, and you have here curly brackets. So if I change that, or if we can actually go ahead and view here the help page that was created for that, we can also see that there. Okay, so that is then also explained here. Of course, the images will be updated to the English images, and you will then also see that and have that available to you. And you see here, for instance, it is created with curly brackets. Okay, and I've created this within not the latest 8.1 version. This is still the previous version, and it is already creating it here with the hard brackets, okay, the square brackets. Okay, so that is important to note that within the, within the last updates, then that has already been applied to the security module. But of course, if it generates an error or you have from older versions, that is something you will want to check. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste that in here for the entire code there, and that is then obviously the access to elements of an array. So before we are able to use the curly brackets or the square brackets, and now we can only use the square brackets in general. We are no longer able to use curly brackets for the array or the output of that. Okay, so there we have then that for PHP 7 as well as then for PHP 8. Okay, so the next important one was, of course, then the variables containing the null context. Now, null actually means null, okay, so that is very important to note. And for that also, I have a little snippet of code here, so I'm going to paste that in here. And there we would indicate basically price. And here we would then, instead of having that, we would have the null here, and that would now generate an error. So that is very important that we then change that, so that we then have an empty value basically, instead of saying it is null. Okay, so that is no longer valid within the latest version of PHP, and that will no longer work within your Scriptcase applications. Okay, so now we do have one final one, and that is for the each function. Okay, so I wanted to have a quick look at this because I was curious on this one myself, and I will show you that as well in a moment, what I found there, so that you're also aware, and maybe it will answer the question as to why was this actually changed. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to copy paste a bit of code in here, and here we are presenting a result, which is nothing, okay, and we are then creating a tabbed array or a tab value as an array, and then we are basically going to present that. Okay, so each value would then be basically listed. Okay, so if I would then go ahead and print that, make sure, yeah, so I need to comment out our other things here, so let me do that. Okay, so we don't have any additional there, and of course now I need to, yeah, now I'm getting an error again. Okay, and this is probably here because of my code that we have here. So I'm going to copy all of it in here. We have also the for each, which is what we're meant to be using, and we're just going to skip out here the each. Okay, and we don't want that, as well as the print. We don't need that either. And if we use here the for each, so we have here comments in here. Okay, yeah, and now good, and run that. We generate that with the for each instead. I'm still getting an error here again. Okay, I'm not entirely sure. Let me see if I can expand that. Okay, sorry about this, guys. Of course, this is development. Yeah, okay, so that's actually an error. It could be with the, okay, so I need to highlight this. This is, of course, the version that is used at the moment for testing. That's why it's not been released yet, because we are still using this for the final test, or performing the final tests on this. And of course, it is a major update with PHP 8. And there I see I just skipped my brackets. That would, of course, help. And of course, okay, so we see the error code is actually being generated slightly differently from what it used to be. And of course, it's a little confusing. Okay, so we have here then our results export. And what I really want to show you on this one, so if we just go to a search for the each function, which is now depreciated, and as it indicates here, since 7.2, this is actually is, I thought it's 7.4, but it's 7.2. And if we scroll down on this single page, on the PHP page, we have somebody here that actually did a speed script on this to see how long it took for the for each as well as the each to be generated. And if we see here, the time for the for each versus the each is so much faster. So that is, of course, one of the big updates for the 8.1, and that is going to make a big difference for when you have, of course, longer lines or more data that you will be outputting into your applications. Okay, so that is also noted here for each. Okay, so that is here some options. We have the for each, the code, the key, the current, and the next. And it is important, of course, to note that for your own code, you will need to make all of these updates and changes to the PHP code that you have developed or scripted yourself. Okay, so that is not anything created by Scriptcase. Everything within Scriptcase itself will automatically be using the 8.1, and all of these values or functions and depreciated features will be automatically updated, so you will not have to worry about that if you use Scriptcase in general. So we come back here to the page, and I have here, if you open, okay, so coming back into this, what I'm going to do then quickly is I'm just going to update that with the full data that I've got here, so it's all in there, and you can actually then possibly download this then with the video when it's then available. Okay, so it's important that you then make those changes if you then need them. If you don't, of course, if you have a developer, ask that developer to make those changes for you. Alternatively, you will need to do that. And again, I will again mention here for security, okay, because it is important for the older versions. If you generated your security with an old version of Scriptcase and you migrate your application, which I'm going to have a quick look at in a moment, okay, and you will then need to make your change here to your app login page. So once that's then generated, you just enter that, and then I need to log in again already. So we lost the page there because my password manager, and of course, again, sorry about that for a moment. My password manager likes to hide the screen from view. Okay, why are you not letting me in? Okay, sorry about that. Let me close my password manager. Yeah, sorry, because that's getting really annoying now. Yeah, that's getting really annoying. Sorry, I'm trying to close that now. So that, okay, I just have to skip that because it's actually blocking the entire video. I can't even close it with the webinar open. So let's try again. Yeah, there we go. Okay. A little annoying. Okay, so I haven't updated yet. You see that there? And I have here, for instance, a basic project that's very empty. And it's just really to show you where we would have to update it. I thought we would have to update it also for any recent projects we have generated or created, and that is then not required. So if you then access programming, your PHP methods, and then remember me validate, and then you will have here curly braces instead of the square braces or square brackets. Okay, so that is then something you will need to update. And of course, as I mentioned, that will all be available here within this page. So you just follow one of these 3 links, and you have here for the change for the security module, as well as the 2 pages for the depreciated functions, as well as the changes that you may have to make within your own code. Okay, so of course the big question will be for new users, will you have to upgrade your environment? And well, you will need to reinstall, or not reinstall, but install a new copy or version of Scriptcase. So you can, when you install it, you just choose a new folder, and you can have two copies of Scriptcase side by side. You will need to register that license again. So if you only have one license, you will need to deregister the other license and then register it again with the new installation. And then with that, you will then be able to migrate your applications. So if you don't know how to do that, you have here, again, 2 buttons from version 9 and from version 8 or earlier. And I can just quickly show you that here within Scriptcase, because if I jump in here to my menu, and I just have to try and remember, because it's not very often I actually go and import. And so we have the typical import and everything here, as in for the import access, tools, okay, locals, modules. So you see how often we actually do this? Not very often at all. Okay, so here, help. We have there the help to check the version. So if you're not sure of your version, do check your version. Okay, so if you have an older version, you will need that. And we have here, oh, I'm really not finding it today. Version history, no. Import project, no. Why am I not finding this now? This used to be in your face. Converted, there we go. Tools converters from version 6 to 7 to 8, okay? So depending on the version of Scriptcase you are using, so There's once in a blue moon you actually need to use this, which is great. Even though we have version 6, 7, 8 here, you know, it's not every year for every new release, so it is a bit of a time. Anyway, so once you have installed your new Scriptcase and your new version of Scriptcase or new copy into a new designated folder, and you have it all registered, you are ready to export your applications, because first thing you'll need to do is come here. You can export your projects if you want to, and then you have the alternative, which is possibly the easiest option, is that you actually perform a full backup of your Scriptcase. Okay, so if you come here to settings, and there you have then here your backup option, so you can create a new backup. So then just create a new backup, add the year and any other data that you want. Click the process. So I can go ahead and just click process now, and it will start backing up all of your Scriptcase projects, applications, settings, everything that you've configured, even your custom templates, the buttons, all of it, the works, okay? And all of that will then, of course, be ready for you to import back into, or restore, should I say in this case, into the new version of Scriptcase. So once that's been done, you then just come here to the restore. It will take a moment because I have a couple of projects in this one. And once that's then ready, you can then restore that, upload it into Scriptcase. And if I come here into this other one that I have here, let me find it here. So if I come here to, find it again, to settings. Okay, I don't have privileges in this one, so sorry, I can't show you there. Okay, so once that's ready, you'll be able to access the restore, and then you have a basic little list here of all of your backups that you've created, or those that you've uploaded. So you can also upload any backup that you have available, and then just simply restore it, and all of your applications, projects, and everything will be back as it was previously. Okay, so there's not a great deal there to do. It is quite straightforward. It takes a little time for the backup process to run, as well as the restore process, but that's just, of course, because you have probably a lot of programs, and at the same time, there is a lot of data being transferred within Scriptcase. So, of course, all of the themes that you may have created, the buttons, and. Okay, so it is important that we do check here also, if I come back here, that we see here within these pages. So let me show you this here also, and I have that one translated here already here. So for the page that you have available, if you click on this link here, or this one here for the version 8, if you need for sooner, then you will have access to this page here, and from here, of course, you will be able to see the supported versions, any news, the changes again, as well as the depreciated functions. And yes, the migration is mandatory, I'm afraid, as it indicates here. And then you have all of the information here on how best to back up, as well as then restore your project. So you have that there also. Okay, so don't really need me to show you that. And of course, we have plenty of videos. And if we don't have a video on this, of course, or anything, just let us know. We're, of course, happy to create it. Okay, so next up. Further down, we have at the bottom here also a complete FAQ. So if you have any questions that you want to ask, I'm going to reply to some of you in a moment. Just a little patience. I'm getting there. Okay. So otherwise, we have all the questions here that you may ask, as well as all the responses. So, for instance, are your projects already in Scriptcase? How do I test them in the new environment, and so forth? Well, as it says, it is quite simple. Once it's installed, you have 20 days to test the new environment, and then you can import your projects as well as the license and so forth. So you can try out the new version. You may want to stay with, the previous version. That is entirely up to you. And then, of course, you have the choice. So you do have the typical free to use access to Scriptcase when you first install it. So do take advantage of that. And of course, try it out before you do move all of your projects over. Okay, so it says here, is it mandatory to transfer my projects to Scriptcase in PHP 8.1? Okay, so it's using Google Translate. It's really about as good as everyone knows. Not very good at all. So, of course, it is recommended. Of course, PHP 8.1 is I think it's the latest release of PHP. It's not 8.2 already, or it's still 8.1. And of course, with that, there are ton of changes, and of course, as I mentioned previously, we are going from 7.4 or something or it says 7.3 here, so it might well be 7.3, all the way to 8.1. Okay, so that is very important. And so for that, of course, it would maybe be important to check out the depreciations that have happened since 7.4. Okay, you have the main ones there, but of course there are, of course, more that may be of interest to hardcore developers that may need those. Okay, so they're all here, and you can just scroll into this page here. So I can, well, you see here the URL, houstonlito.github.io, and here you can see all of the depreciations that happened since then. Okay, so do check that out. Also, otherwise, of course, on the typical PHP website, you have all of the information there also. So, further questions. Will I lose my previous version projects? Well, not if you leave it installed. Okay, so it is important, of course, that you leave it installed, you leave your license there until you're comfortable with the new installation, and then move your license as well as your projects over. Of course, make backups, always make backups, and keep another backup somewhere else. You know, backups on top of backups. Never just create a single backup, because it's, well, yeah, okay, it's not really a backup. Okay, so do you need to uninstall the previous version? No, you don't have to. See, some of these I don't even have to look at too. The folder that you install to, that is your choice. Just create a new folder. And I would imagine, because the installer typically comes with the folder designation, so in this case, it will say, for instance, PHP 8.1 version, and then it will just create the folder for this specific version of Scriptcase anyway. Of course, if you want to change the name of that folder, you are more than welcome to. So what happens to your license is the next question. Well, your license, it's in the cloud, it's in Scriptcase. You can transfer it if you are, of course, within your license period. And if you need any more information, you can, of course, come to this page later on, and you will have all of the exact information, as well as links to the portals, the pages that you will need, and so forth. So do check that out. Okay, so I'm going to quickly jump into some questions quickly before I come down here to do PHP improvements, because they're starting to get a little, they're filling up the page, and I'm going to lose them otherwise. Okay, so the first question is, once I have upgraded Scriptcase to 9.8, if still I can publish for the client whose server is still 0.7.0. Okay, so that is a little confusing question, to be honest. I'm guessing you mean they still have their Scriptcase installation at 7. The previous version. Well, you can still publish the applications, but of course, when you overwrite your applications on that portal, and they say, for instance, they generate new applications within the older version, then you're going to have a mismatch. Your code, it will not. No, that will not. You will not be able to migrate between the two back and forth. I would not advise that. I guess you can, but yeah, I would not advise that. Okay, so interesting to see how fast you go and switch screens. I'm getting a headache. Sorry, Giorgio. I'm really sorry. Yeah, I should slow down a lot more. I was actually saying that the other day. I need to slow down more, because in some cases, yeah. Okay, so speaking of licenses, so this is Jason. Speaking of licenses, as in, we cannot just stop developing and fixing our own issues with any current applications with the current version of Scriptcase, as well as migrate to the new version while debugging. Well, as I've said already, you have those 20 odd days to use the demo version. And of course, you can uninstall it and reinstall it again at a later time when you feel more comfortable, and go through the same process again. That's nothing stopping you from doing that. Just because the latest version is now going to be available, it doesn't mean that you have to install the new version. You can stay with the old version for a little while until you're happy and comfortable moving your projects over. Of course, with large projects and so forth, if you have tons of code, you're going to be making some changes. Okay, so we're talking months of, yeah, okay, I understand, Jason, I really do. The best thing is you use the demos. Okay, so Aaron also has another question. My app still use your now depreciate Google Auth plugin. If I move them to PHP, will I lose it? Okay, the depreciated Google Auth authentication plugin. Okay, you lost me now. Since when is that depreciated? I thought we still have that. Yeah, we still have that, don't we? That's not been removed. We don't typically remove things. So yes, that will still be available. Oh, we don't. Okay, I need to check that one, but not that I knew of. Okay, is it possible to import a CSV file in a live Scriptcase application? Yes, it is. It's an entirely different question. That is maybe an entirely different project that we can come to at some other time. Of course, as I said previously, if you have any requests for webinars or anything you want to have specific videos and we don't already have them, then of course, always go ahead. There's the support. You can have the chat window here. You can always ask there. Just, ask. You will be surprised. Okay, so as I mentioned, considering I went through the pages very fast, I'm really sorry about that again, Giorgio. So as I mentioned before, you have the new updates for what's in Scriptcase with 8.1 here. We also have all of the depreciated changed functions in PHP within this homepage available for you, and the important change within the security module. Okay, so as I mentioned before, the changes and the depreciated functions, these will be very important for your developers or those that develop code or write code within Scriptcase. Otherwise, the change in security module will only be important for old users moving to Scriptcase or from previous versions of Scriptcase. And at the same time, if your security module, when login, does give you an error message, then for sure that is something you will want to check. Okay, so down to PHP improvements, because with 8.1, as I said a couple times already, there are a ton of improvements to this. And moving a few versions along, of course, there are going to be a few more than you may expect. Okay, so with PHP, there are loads of general improvements, as we see here, for new functionality. And let's have a quick look at these. And let me translate that also to English. So we have on enumerations. So again, we have the difference here. So previous to 8.1, and now we have for 8.1. And you can see there is quite a bit of a difference in how your code will end up. Okay, much easier today, thankfully. Okay, so we also have reader-only properties. We also have syntax of callable first class, initializers, and well, there's going to be many more. Okay, so this will take your developer some time, and I actually think your developer will more or less know already what is available for 8.1. Okay, so at the bottom here, you already see here the performance improvements. Okay, so here we have some statistics on the performance improvements of PHP 8.1. Now, of course, this does fall over to Scriptcase. This means Scriptcase will be faster to use. It will generate faster. It will work much better. It will be more reliable. And of course, with the latest update to 8.1, it also improves security and of course, better syntax. As you see here, there is a big difference between how you would have coded before and how you would code today. And this is pretty much happening across the board in many other scripting languages. Okay, so other than that, we have the performance improvements. So I'm guessing that's just going to scroll us down to here to the performance improvements that are here. So I'm not going to show you that again. And in general, yes, it is much faster. Okay, we have new classes, interfaces, and functions. Again, this is all applied within the back end of Scriptcase. You will not really going to see this, but of course, it may be important to your developers, as well as the depreciations and the backward compatibility, because it will more than likely break something in your code if you have a lot of hand-coded applications or apps that are actually been created by somebody else, not within the default application. So not by using the form or the grid. If you created modules in there or your own libraries, then for sure you will have to update some code. Okay, so do we have any questions? Do we have any further questions? Let me jump into anything else. If you have any questions on any of these features, functions, depreciations, the update to Scriptcase, the migration, the export, the import, whatever it may be, go ahead, ask while we still have time. And of course, I'll be happy to slowly try and go over it again. I'm going to say try because I'll try and do it slowly because, yes, I do speed up a little too fast sometimes. Okay, so unless we're happy. So speaking of licenses, yes, Jason, we've done that one. Okay, so we have a couple more questions coming in now. Lovely. Okay, so my app's still used now. Yeah, the Google plugin. Yeah, I will need to check that, Aaron. If you're in a future no, that's not related. Okay, if you're in a future webinar, do point it out again. I'll be happy to go over it. Okay. Okay, so I cannot say. Okay. Thank you for the answer. I get that, but debugging can take months and months, not 20 days. Yes, Jason, I know. It typically for large projects in general, if you have a large project and you know, for instance, typically what I would do is actually create my own little report page where I can quickly and easily debug anything, import it within a library, and then have everything displayed for me in an easy and understandable fashion. So that, of course, when situations like this happen, because PHP, as we know, scripting languages are constantly updated, and PHP is okay, it's not as updated as some of the others at the moment, but it still has very important releases where we have to change our code as well as change, in some cases, the entire project. Okay, so if we deploy a project in PHP 7, will it work in PHP 7 from 9.8 for projects? Okay, I'm not entirely sure if I understand the question on that one, Asan. I'm sorry about that, but I'll try and cover that. Okay, so let me come back here to my script case. And within Scriptcase, once you have gone ahead and backed up your applications, okay, so you've gone here to your settings. Okay, wrong one. You've come here to your settings. And then within settings, you've done your backup. Now my backup's done. So if I come here now to restore, I have now here all of my applications or projects that I've had in here that are available as a backup. So I can actually come here and delete individual backups just by selecting them, clicking the button here. I can use here the folder button, and that will then allow me to process and restore that individual project, or I can delete it, or I can restore an entire zip file. So just by simply then selecting that, then I can then go ahead and upload the projects that I have exported from or backed up from my previous Scriptcase version, and then I can go ahead and restore that here. Now, once that's then done, then you may need to come and run, or you will need to come here and run here if I can find it again, tools converters, right? So here the converter from version 8, well, from version 9, version 8 to 9. Okay, so if you are going from previous version, you will always need to do that anyway. Okay, so that is important to note. All right, so regardless of moving from a Scriptcase version of 7.0 or 8.0, I would not advise it, okay, because of course things work differently within the back end of Scriptcase for each version, with our new features been added, and then of course when you try and go back to an older version, that's going to have issues. Of course, upgrading should never be a problem. Okay,